Nope. Good morning, everyone. This is Patrick from POWLAX, where we create confident coaches because confident coaches create great environments for players. In this video, I'm going to be basically doing the live stream that I did yesterday morning, but I felt like I didn't do it in a way where I clarified both aspects of the points that I made, and so I wanted to rethink it, redo it, and so that's what this is going to be. Good morning. It is 4:45 in Denver right now, and it's day one of the 2022 season. So I am thrilled. We got tryouts tonight, and we're going to talk a little bit about that stuff. And yeah, so let's get right into it. So this video is going to be brought to you by POWLAX.com. I'm just going to show you the site really quick. Shouldn't take more than 10 seconds. So this is POWLAX.com. You can watch all of these videos for free. We've got strategy videos, drill videos, skill development videos, new to lacrosse videos, all of which are free. Then if you want to dive deeper and get Playbook PDFs, you can do that for $5 a month. And then there's a digital playbook, all kinds of other stuff. Have fun, look around. Now let's get into the discussion. So first I'm going to mention something that happened at LaxCon, and it was basically a buddy of mine who I met 2 LaxCons ago was like, I really like the live streams because they kind of give a more in-depth look into you as a person versus just the presentations of the coaching stuff. But so I think I might want to do more of these live streams as the season goes. I think that'd be a good idea. I like that idea. And so if you guys have any topics that you guys want me to discuss, let me know. I will be doing one on game day coaching here in a little bit, which will basically discuss kind of my idea on what the responsibilities of a coach are during game day and kind of the strategies of running sidelines, et cetera, et cetera. So that'll be coming. So this episode is going to be about what grinds my gears, what things, upset me. In lacrosse, I'm really more of a purist. I really don't, I'm not a big win or lose person. Like there are certain aspects of winning and losing that can upset me, but like, the way I kind of think about it is there's some people that take even men's league way too seriously for me. Like I just love playing the game. And so that's why there's actually one of my most recent TikToks was of me making a really good check against another player. And he looks back and he's like, good check. And I'm like, thanks, man. And then literally about 5 minutes later, he made a good check on me. And I looked back and I was like, good save to the goalie, then good check to the other guy. And it's like, that's the part of men's league that I really like. Now there are some people who like, I don't know, it's weird. It just, certain things frustrate them. Like you're supposed to play hard. You're supposed to kind of give little cheap shots here and there. Nothing like crazy, but in the same sense, they're supposed to hit you. Like if you're standing in the middle of the field in box lacrosse, you're going to get hit. And if you get hit and then you're pissed, da-da-da. But then there are other people who like take it too far. Like they'll punch people in the head and like, there are things that, cross the line even for me, but, it's just interesting to kind of see the pure nature of it. And so that kind of leads me into this part of the discussion, which is going to be about retaliation and just, people talking shit, especially when the limelight's on them. Like I'm all for, pushing down the kid's socks because he's got calf high socks because we're on the other side of the field, just to kind of like, I don't know. It's funny, right? And you're just kind of like getting in their head, especially if they think it's like really important, then it's just kind of like making fun of them, which I think is funny. But then when it comes time to like have a play that, maybe a kid got injured, maybe something happened where everything is like very focused, that's where you have to be more controlled. And so the first thing I'm going to bring up is the Syracuse-Virginia game because there was a play. And now Virginia was blowing them out at this point. So what happened wasn't very important to the outcome of the game. But in a close situation, it will become, it could have been the difference in a 1-goal game. So right here, Pete LaSalle is facing off. And so from anyone who is just listening, which I haven't really been tending to the podcast, so this might be the first podcast thing in a while. But so basically it starts with a face-off. Pete LaSalle wins it out the front. As he's running in, the LSM, who is coming in off the wing, meets him about at the restraining line, gives him a nice push, and he kind of loses his balance a bit. He shoots the ball, which makes him further off balance, and he hits the point defenseman about with his head at about hip level on the point defenseman. Now, PD kind of goes down, and he goes down hard, and he's kind of laying on the ground, right? And so at this point, the refs, they call a cross check to the head. They lock him in for 1 minute. Now, when you watch the replay, there was no cross check to the head. The kid lost his balance. He fell into the defenseman, which is a dangerous play, which you can get hurt doing. But there was no malintent of the kid trying to hit him in the head. Now, when you actually watch the slow-mo, you almost see that the Syracuse player is almost trying to accept him instead of hit him. He clearly saw that he was off balance. Okay, I got to go to the actual play because I'm trying to find the slow-mo for the people who are on the live. But as you watch it, you see he doesn't actually go in to hit him. He takes a step to go hit him, right? And then you see he kind of backs down. He just doesn't hit him with a cross check. He takes a shuffle, kind of pushes his body into him, but PD falls, and he took the next face off too. So he wasn't really injured. But the whole point of it is to talk about kind of what happens afterwards. Afterwards, obviously all the Virginia players are going to step up in front of the person who is on the ground, to PD who's on the ground, and defend him, get everybody off of him. Now all the Syracuse players, they walk away. It's good. It was a penalty. It was called a penalty, and that is what it is. Whether you're going to call a push behind there or you're going to call a cross check to the head, for me on the sideline as a coach, call the penalty, right? And I like to think I'm a coach who, with reason, and will advocate for penalties being called on my own team, and will hush our sideline when they start freaking out. Now, what you'll see now is as the ref goes over to the sideline to discuss the penalty, he throws another flag because one of the Virginia defensemen said something. This is the part that just pisses me off, because you can't do that. Everyone knows tensions are high, right? Everybody knows, we understand, that is what it is. This is not the time to throw your retaliatory blow. Now, so he basically just says something. You see him walk off, and Lars Tiffany, Virginia's coach, is yelling at him, what are you doing, man? And not even from a standpoint of you could cost us the game, but just be a sportsman, be, I don't know. I seem to have more assumption of positive intent with people, that I recognize that for the most part, people aren't trying to piss you off and aren't trying to people are mostly trying to go about their day, trying to do what they're trying to do. So in the game of lacrosse, they're trying to win their game. You're trying to win your game. The vast majority of people aren't trying to go out and hurt anybody or do anything stupid. And this, we'll get into kind of this same idea in terms of the next topic that grinds my gears. But when you retaliate in that moment, it's huge. And so now what's funny is this pisses me off too. So the Syracuse defenseman's in the box, the Virginia defenseman's in the box, and you see the Syracuse defenseman just kind of just looking at the Virginia defenseman, and he's just kind of staring him down. It's actually kind of funny. But as he's doing this, Petro, Syracuse's defensive coordinator, turns to look at him, and he's like, "The hell are you doing, man? What are you doing? What is that? What are you doing? Why are you staring him down?" Disrespectful for sure. And so it's just kind of funny to see that part. But those are the aspects of the game where if you're in a tight game and not in a blowout game, those are going to cost you the game. And especially if you're someone who leads your team and you're a leader on the team, you can't do that crap. Especially in that moment. If you want to have a retaliatory thing, do it later. Right? I've been in games where kids have kind of cheap shotted me here and there with just behind the play. Now, I'm not going to go cheap shot them or do something when they're in front of the play. Like, I'm going to do it behind the play like they did to me, because I'm not trying to get caught. And in those moments of high tension, all eyes are on you. So I'm going to tell one more story in this vein, because I thought it was pretty interesting it was pretty interesting yesterday. So, no, not yesterday. Yeah, was it yesterday? No, Saturday. So we had our last game of our winter season, and we have an LSM, a feisty little LSM, who is, he's one of my he's one of my favorite kids, right? But he's small, he's got decent skills, and he had a kid coming over who was significantly bigger than him, and he hit him. And I mean, he hit him. It was a great hit. The problem with players that are little sometimes is that as they hit, they always go up, because they have the low center of gravity, and they can go up pretty well and easily. And if they're going to make good contact, that's kind of how they have to do it. But so hit him a bit high, hands were a little too far apart, like definitely made a good hit. I think that if he had just kind of stayed low, it would have been better. But so he got called for the penalty, right? But literally as they stand up, I don't even know who the player was that reacted or what it was, but they started to get chippy and fight each other. But so the entire other team's bench just flows onto the field, which is everybody's getting ejected at that point. Like, technically the entire coaching staff from the other team should have got ejected. And, tempers flared. It was what it was. There's no reason to get super out of control about it. Like, from my coaching standpoint and from my sideline standpoint, you'd never go on the field if you're not supposed to go on the field, right? Like, you are supposed to leave it to the referees to adjudicate, right? Now, in the event that it's like the NLL where they're tossing gloves and sparring, I could see how you might be able to be validated in, I was just going on the field to make them stop fighting, right? But for the most part, all the players on the field should be getting in between people, separating them, etc. Bottom line is, in those moments, don't be the dude who's going to go in and push someone because your guy got hit. For the most part, the kid who probably made the cheap play wasn't fully meaning to hurt a kid. They're just playing fast. And in those fast moments, sometimes, checks and those things happen. And as a riding attackman who has had a variety of slash calls, I'm never trying to hit the kid in the hip. He just moved his stick too fast as I was trying to swing my one-hand wrap check. So main point of this is, if you have a player who's very hot-heady, you can definitely talk to them a lot, but for the most part, what I find is in those moments, most of that is frustration from elsewhere, right? Lacrosse kind of becomes the thing they can kind of take their energy out on. And in those moments, there's a lot of stuff you can do, but really it comes down to the person making the choice to be controlled. And if it becomes a habit of every single game, there's someone who pisses this kid off and he always does it, the first thing you can do is sit him. I just get him out of the game. It's not even bench him for an entire game, because if those moments happen in the playoffs when you're in a very important situation, nothing's going to go well. And especially if it's a player who's a really good player, that has to be shown to the team that even he is not above the sportsmanship of our team. And, it might be a tough situation. You might lose the game because you're missing your best player. But if he's a hothead, he's a hothead. Sorry, you can't play if you're not going to be a good sport. So the next thing, and so we're actually moving to a new topic now that just drives me nuts, is small production lacrosse on college lacrosse. Now, it's not I love the productions. I love that they're there. But the cameraman who thinks he's going to follow the individual player and then follow the ball really accurately drives me nuts as a coach. And not because they're not very good at it. He'll follow the play pretty well. But what drives me nuts is the fact that they zoom in so close, I can't see the rest of the play. I can't see any of the other part of the play. And so it's funny because you have these, I'm not even going to call them novices, but they probably are. They're probably a student's organization, or they're probably, it's like the close-ups at the wrong time, right? Like if you're going to have a close-up, you kind of do it when the play is in the middle of two things, but not when you're on the offensive end and not when you're in man up, man down, right? You don't want to zoom in all tight because then you can't see anything happen. You just see the one player running, and no one wants to see the one player running if you're watching an entire broadcast. But so that was just another one I saw this morning as I put a game on. I always have a game kind of on my computer, so in the season at least. But so that's another thing that grinds my gears. Now, we're going to talk about playing time. This is the reason why I'm doing the grinds my gears section again, because as I evaluated the playing time discussion, I had more thoughts, and after yesterday, I didn't feel that I did this on a level that I felt I should have. So, the first thing about playing time is you have to know what team you're on. You have to know what what is the goal of the team, what is the team doing, and that is on the coach. Right? The coach has to set the boundaries in terms of what playing time is going to be. And as I give this, I am literally the worst person to talk about when it comes to evaluating playing time, because I am of the thought process that I like the idea of everybody plays because I'm a purist in the sport. I think everybody should play. But once you get to a certain level, I change the game because it becomes about competition. And I think that you should try to win the game. Right? I think trying to win the game is important. I don't think it's, 3-by in the park. I don't really care who wins. I don't care if I lose. I get to go play another game of 3-by right now. And there's no 3-by cup championship where I'm going to win a $25,000 prize at the end. So don't care. I just want to enjoy my time. Now, when it comes to parents and players recognizing playing time, the coach must set standards at the beginning of the year on what it's going to be. Now, with that, once those are outlined, it shouldn't be a discussion at all, because now there are a lot of little potholes to this. Now I'm going to talk through a couple of those potholes. The first pothole is if the coach says everybody's going to play like they do in the club circuit because everybody's paying, $1,300 to $2,500 to play in the summer, right? If your kid's not playing, and that was what was discussed, that prompts a discussion from the parent. Totally recognize that 100% because that's what the coach said was going to happen. It didn't happen. I get that. Now, especially with high school at the JV level, what you're going to, or JV or freshman level, depending on what it is, especially out of season, what you're going to get, so fall, JV, or freshman level, like we run our DLC league in the fall. What you're going to get is you're going to get a bunch of brand new players who've never played the sport before, and then you're also going to get a bunch of players that have played a lot. And what's going to happen on the sideline is the players who have played a lot, who understand the flow of the game, are going to be hopping in when they know they should be hopping in, right? And if the coach or a coach on the sideline doesn't tell the midfielders, like, everyone's running through and everyone gets their go, the players who know what's going on are just going to step over the players that don't, and that's just what's going to happen. So you have to have someone on the sideline who's going to mediate that. I've probably experienced that like 15 times, because there are teams that just, and in a personal like way where I was either the coach and so every time that happens, I always have to turn and, I'm like, no, make sure you first off, there's two things. Players who know the sport need to not step over the toes of the players who don't, and they need to advocate for those players. The other thing is the players who need to get the time and need to go on the field have to get over themselves and recognize they're going to go on the field, they're going to screw up, and they're going, like, everyone's going to watch them screw up. Like, good. You should be watching them screw up, because you don't become a good person at doing anything unless you are the novice at one point. Like, everyone tries something for the first time at some point, and in the fall, in those experiences, like, go have fun. Like, just enjoy it. There's a lot of adrenaline that comes with doing something for the first time, and they need to be encouraged by the coach and by the other players to go and have their time. And what's the best is when you watch like a kid who's like brand new pick up a ground ball and throw it, and your sideline goes nuts because they know the kid's never played before, but they're just so happy that he made a play, right? Or even, even when you recognize that the kid, is trying to dodge with no stick protection against like a decent pole, and he's going to get stripped, and then you just have that teaching moment when he comes off the field. Like, they're all great experiences if you allow them to be. And that's another part in the playing time discussion is, regardless of where they are on playing time, there's a teachable moment in every single situation. Parents, from my perspective, you got to let the teaching happen, and you have to let your player be involved in those times. So my first bullet point was playing time in general should not be discussed after the coach sets the expectations if the coach is upholding his part, and the only place that it wouldn't happen is if everyone's supposed to play, but everyone wasn't playing in that game. The second way it can happen, and this is probably the one that pisses me off the most, is when we recognize that we're going to be on a competitive play, like we're going to be in a competitive environment, and then the player's just pissed because he didn't play, right? And then the player's pissed, so he goes home, he talks to mom and dad. Mom and dad are pissed because he's not playing because their kid is sad, right? Their kid is upset. I get that. You got to let him be upset. You got to back the coach in terms of, that's why you got to work harder. You got to do what you do. That's the decision he's made. If you don't know what to do, that's a whole other issue, right? If you don't know what he's looking for, you got to discuss that, and that's got to be on the kid to discuss it. And I get that that's a difficult situation. Okay, I'm going to bullet point it really quick because I kind of went on a tangent, and I want to make sure I hit that really well. So once you know exactly what environment you're in, competitive versus everybody plays, those should stay standard. And once it comes to the competitive game, there should be no conversations about playing time other than the player asking the coach, how can I get on the field? What do I need to do to get on the field, right? And so I saw this awesome TikTok yesterday, and basically the TikTok it was actually a couple days before yesterday because I did the other thing yesterday. It was a baseball coach in a press conference talking about how stupid the select model is, because the select model basically allows for everybody to play, and it promises everyone that they're not going to sit. But every single series of baseball after that, they sit, right? In high school, they're going to sit. They're going to wait, and he says wait and work, right? You got to wait and work. You got to wait. So he has a really good phrase where he says, a lot of people stop working when the door closes, and so they basically become stagnant when the door is closed, and they don't get any better. But then they're willing to work again when the opportunity presents itself. So let's say you're in a high school environment, and you are I'm going to try not to talk about Pat Spencer, since Pat Spencer spent his junior, or maybe it was sophomore season on JV, and he ended up winning the Tewaaraton, was one of the best players like ever in college lacrosse, but as a sophomore in high school, he didn't even play. He didn't even make varsity. And as I'm not going to talk about Pat Spencer, I just tell you about Pat Spencer. So in high school, if you are a sophomore like I was, who was riding the bench, but was very competitive with the other players who he was competitive with, like, there are some people who, because that door shut and you're not going to get the time that you want, will stop working. And once you stop working and you stop getting better, you are then just stagnant. And so people want to recognize, what you want to do is you want to understand that at some point that door is going to open. And when it opens, you have to be ready. You can't just stop working because the door is closed, because your opportunity isn't there right now, because then you just become stagnant, and when the door opens, you're not going to be better anyway, right? So the wait and work idea has to happen, because it's going to happen in high school, it's going to happen in college, it's going to happen in AA, it's going to happen in AAA, it's going to happen in the majors. All of those things are kind of what this baseball coach says. And he says that it's really stupid to have this select environment where everybody gets to play, because once they have to sit because they need to wait and work, they don't know how to do it, right? They don't understand. Well, it's hard on them because they feel like they should be getting to play because they've always gotten to play. Now, in those moments, for parents, for coaches, there has to be a united front on what that is. So, when you get to that competitive environment, from the parent's perspective, your job is not to take care of the situation for the kid. This goes for almost everything in sports. Your job is to facilitate the experience for the kid in a way where they feel like they are handling it. So first off, do not go talk to the coach about the issue if it's something performance-based, right? If it's health-based, if it's, how can I phrase this? Basically, if it's something that the kid controls and that the kid has the opportunity to approach the coach about, do not take that from the kid. You are destroying the agency of the kid, right? By tending to their issue for them, you are eliminating an opportunity for the advancement of your kid, because they need to be able to have those difficult conversations. And I recognize that having a conversation with a coach is one of the most difficult things you can do, because a lot is riding on it. One of the things about playing time for high school kids, especially like seniors who are wanting to play but won't start, is that lacrosse is so ingrained in what their identity is, and they feel like if they're not getting playing time, that's now somehow not a part of their identity. Like, there's a lot of pressure on those things, right? And I recognize that. The key is that they have to go through that experience for themselves and build that ability to have the difficult conversations for themselves. Because what I've had happen, and what pisses me off more than anything in the lacrosse coaching space, is having these conversations with players that then go into whining to parents, and then conversations with parents, and recognizing that the messages that are being crossed are not being told, right? So you're having a discussion with the player acknowledges that he wants to play more, and you're like, okay, I recognize that. Now this is what you're going to have to do. This is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make sure the team is playing very well. But then when the player gets to the parent, he just bitches. He just complains. He just says he doesn't understand. There's no acknowledgement of the mission of the coach or what the coach is trying to do. And then the parent then circumnavigates it, and it's basically three people talking with walkie-talkies, where I got to talk to the kid's talking to the parent's then talking to me, right? And the biggest mistake I ever made was taking a meeting with an AD and parents who I knew, right? Parents who I had a great relationship with prior to this, without the kid there, right? So if you're ever going to have a meeting with parents, players got to be there, for sure, 100%. Because what you realize is that when you're talking to the kid's not expressing the same things that he's expressing to you, to his parents, right? And that's a tough thing to do, right? None of us do that well, right? If we have, like, you can't emulate the third party into the conversation in any of these ideas, right? There's no way to do it. Now, in this specific circumstance, when I talked to the player, it was all about playing time, because he felt like he had earned it. He felt like that was where he was. Now, the player who started over him was a better player. There's no other way I could say that. And like, I had great relationships with both families, this and that. It was one of the seeds of doubt that like kind of started happening a few years ago. But so my main pet peeve, my main thing that grinds my gears in these situations, is parents who will, I think they call it snow plow it, right? They just plow away the opportunity for challenge for the player, right? They should be encouraged to go talk to the coach, and then you let them fall where they may, right? Now, in those moments of difficulty where a player is not getting to play and is on the sideline, what is their objective? Because if you just tell them, hey, you got to wait and work, like, I recognize that's kind of crappy. So the main objective for me in those moments is to say, well, how can you add value to the team from the sideline, right? Like, you can serve a great purpose, because I've had a variety of teams who, when the seniors realized they weren't going to play very much, ended up being cancers on the end of the bench. So their ability to be a great teammate was huge. And so the vast majority of those players got opportunity to play in games during that season, and all of the built-up frustration and all of that ended up kind of being a moot point, because they ended up doing, they ended up getting some time, right? But that was where it needed to happen, and it wasn't something where they were a better player than the player who was above them. But so I guess there's two. The thing that grinds my gears is the three-way conversation. Don't want to do that. So I always have meetings with parents and players, because once it's there, parents armed with the positive intent of the coach and the recognition of kind of what that's going to be, they don't have to agree with what the coach is doing. That's fine. But as long as they have a good understanding of where the coach is coming from, the the discussions on both sides of the player become better. They become more directed, right? It's so important for coaches and parents to be in a united front, at least letting the player know where they stand and what challenges are there for them, because that's just how it should work, right? Now, the next part of this discussion in terms of playing time is venting versus gossip, right? This is one thing that just pisses me off more than anything. And it doesn't always have to be playing time. It's really just about how you conduct yourself when there is a tense issue, right? And so, regardless of what happened, if you feel there's someone at fault, your job in that scenario is to go tell them that something happened. Like, go be like, yo, what the hell was this about? Because in that moment, you are going directly to the source. You're not circumnavigating the situation by going to someone else. And so I'm just going to tell it in terms of a story. Let's say you go watch a game and, I don't know, something happens in the game that you didn't like. Now, you can go and you can be pissed about that event, and you can talk to your spouse, to your brother, to whoever about that thing and be like, man, that really pissed me off that coach did that. That really pissed me off. That's fine. That's venting. You experienced something you didn't like. You're expressing your discontent with the situation. Totally cool. I recognize that. It's important to do. What's not okay is going on to public forums, circumnavigating the coach, and just like bitching about it, right? Especially in a public forum, especially online, doing the keyboard warrior bullshit, right? If you have an issue, you have the personal responsibility to express that issue to someone who has the ability to change it, not to just bitch and moan with all your other buddies, because all you're doing is creating cancer on a team, right? So this whole idea of, what is the beginning word in this phrase? It's assuming positive intent, right? Like, a lot of times coaches or parents get made out to be the bad guys because there's some issue, right? Now, a lot of times coaches just don't know, or parents just don't know, or like the discontent in other people. It's as if people think that everything is done purposefully. And so they're like, yeah, no, he just doesn't like my kid, because you're not willing to have the damn conversation. You're not willing to come to the coach and say, hey, look, I saw this. I just wanted to touch base with you on it. Like, kind of what was going on. I didn't really like this. And, coaches aren't perfect, but we're also not purposeful in every violation of a kid's feelings or a parent's feelings, right? And the whole thing about bringing that out is that the obstacle, that thing that really is hard to do, that conversation that creates that anxiety, that's the way forward. Having that conversation is the way forward. Like, you might have that feeling in you, but it doesn't, in the same way that if you're not having a good day, you still get up, you still go to work, right? You may not want to, might not be the best thing, but you still go do it. And that's the part where the vast majority of times I've had conversations with parents about their players have been great conversations. Now, are they tense? Hell yeah, they're tense. I have one parent in specific in my head who I love because he's not afraid to come confront me. He's not afraid to call me. And we don't agree all the time, but he's willing to express where he feels his kid is and how his kid is misunderstanding a situation. And if we have to have that conversation with the kid as well, we will. But you know what happens after that conversation? Smooth sailing, right? And we've actually had to have 2 or 3, because I'm not the best communicator. I'm not perfect. I don't say everything perfectly every time. Neither does he. But as we kind of talk to each other and we piss each other off and we kind of evaluate kind of what's happening and what's happening in each other's heads, we clarify the situation for each other on a level that we are able to then move forward, right? And that's the key. It's not about having a perfect experience. It's about helping each other to see where the other one is in these moments so that we can all move forward. Now, here's another thing that drives me nuts. And I recognize it's all a choice, but it's a choice that, there's no way around. So back before I was a dad, I had a ton of time. I would spend the off season with the players every single day of the week in the fall, right? Whether it was lifting, whether it was yoga, whether it was practice, every single night I would be able to go to the school, have, interact with the kids, and I was always in front of the players. This was back when I was a head coach. That time doesn't exist anymore. It doesn't. So the interactions that I have to be pretty damn direct. I'm not going to beat around the bush with stuff because I don't have the time, right? First off, there's the ability to coach practice, but I envy college coaches because they often have the ability to have the kids come into their office when there's an issue, right? I don't have that ability. And I probably shouldn't say that, but from the direction of some schools, there should not be any contact other than like direct lacrosse content through players, but you can't build a good connection with players like that, right? Being able to sit down and have good discussions is the best way now. And I recognize the idea that you have to make time for those things because they are important. But right now I don't have that time, right? Like there's no extra in my day. Like it's so scheduled that I have to wake up at 4 to get any work done because I'm a dad and because I'm a coach and because there's other things that I'm choosing to tend my time to. Now, with that direct nature of that, it does create issues where things are not said in the right way and you have to kind of circle back. And that's the other thing that has to happen in all of these conversations. You have to allow the other person to screw up what they say. Because the vast majority of the time when you say something, it hits the other person's brain in the way that they are feeling in that moment. And the odds of them having that personal experience the way you want them to have it is not going to happen. That's why all the time you have to go back and you have to re-clarify. And so here is the next thing. I want to make sure I hit everything in that. I think I did. So everyone plays versus competitive, how you want to make sure players understand how to wait to work, how the transition from everybody playing to waiting to work is an important step where coaches and parents have to be united on that front to let them know like, hey, you're still playing lacrosse, right? It's still a good experience. That was another thing I didn't touch on, which was if you love playing the game, you love playing the game, value it for the game. I recognize the idea that everybody wants to play in the actual game, but you can't play everyone. Then it's whether the infraction of the coach was purposeful or not. Odds are it wasn't purposeful. Odds are there's just a miscommunication. Coach didn't say something he should have said and didn't take the time to talk with the kid. I am a huge, huge violator of that. So many times I think everyone's good. I think everyone's good. But I said something that pissed somebody off. And the one thing that I love when kids do is like, hey, what did you mean by that? Like, or coach, that was real dickish to say, man. Like, I took offense to that. Like, I love it because I understand and I can recognize and now I can course correct to make sure that I'm better next time. Venting versus gossip. Tell somebody, don't air your grievances. The person who has the grievance needs to bring the grievance forward. It should not be something where the player is, the player feels that his feelings were violated and then the mom comes as mama bear to address the situation. Now I recognize there's an age level there where like, if you have a coach that's screaming at a 10-year-old, first off, find a new coach. That's a full on like, go have the thing. But if it's like a young man, someone who's 14, 15, 16, they need to have the conversation with the coach. Now, if you have an abusive coach, that's one thing. But having a coach who is direct with your kid about what he needs to do and to not screw up the drill by doing something wrong, that's just a coach coaching. And another thing about coaches in these moments that I find that a lot of people might not know is that the vast majority of time that a coach is directing a single individual in a drill needs to be said loud enough to where the entire team can kind of hear it and overhear it. Because we don't want to stop the drill, but we want to make sure they know that this aspect needs to be correct. And so it might be a single person who he's talking to, but everyone should hear it. Now, there are other conversations that need to be more individual. This is more of a surface level thing where a kid might feel he's getting yelled at, but he's getting yelled at for the benefit of the team. And honestly, if you're getting yelled at least the coach is there coaching you, teaching you. And that should be a good thing. Like the vast majority of time yelling is not because they're pissed. It's because they want you to do better and because they're in the coaching mode of like, we got to get through practice. There's just, it's an elevated thing. So I had a whole other topic, and then I just got rambling into other things that I thought were there. But so let me know if you would like me to discuss some topic. I'll probably hit certain things. I am going to do that game day coaching one. I'm really bummed I forgot what that other little tangent I was going to head out on was, but I'm not really too concerned. It's day one of the spring season 2022. Definitely let me know what you guys think of these. You know, if you want to hit me up on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of those. The how to beat a zone video is my best upload in a long while. I hope you guys really enjoy that video. That one was, a long time coming, and it was requested by a lot of people. I really like how it turned out. I think it's going to be a good thing that will, it's going to make a lot of the Wesleyan zones better by giving coaches the ability to attack the zone in zone offense types of ways. The one thing I'll say on that is that zone is just regular defense. It's not anything crazy. But so those are the things that grind my gears. Kids that retaliate, small production lacrosse televisions who like zoom in too much and don't show the entire field, and then playing time discussions and like misunderstandings and people who are going to go gossip about some issue instead of hitting the issue 10 on. I remember what it was now. So, this is good. With my time frame, right, as someone who wakes up at 4 a.m. to make sure they get work done, there's not a lot of time to do things during the day as I'm watching my kids and then I'm going to practice and all of this stuff. But so one thing that's really helped is this app. Now, I'm not promoting the app for any other reason, but it's called Hindsight. I think that's what it's called. We'll see. We'll look it up. We'll show you. No, it's called Headway. Hindsight. I'm ridiculous. So, it's called Headway. Voices aren't very good. So, it is basically a app that... So, you remember Cliff Notes? Remember back in the day where you'd have a book that you need to read and there were these little Cliff Notes packets that you could like open up and it would basically be like a 10-page summary of the book? That's what this is, but in audio format. So, it basically takes a bunch of books that are... longer, and they condense it down into certain topics. But so I've got this Headway app whenever I'm in the car and I'm not watching something kind of like entertaining. Like I like Gary Vee, I like Jordan Peterson, I like Jocko Willink, I like David Goggins. Kind of get me hyped up for practice, and like, a lot of the psychology stuff is what I did in college, so it's nice to like revisit that. But the Hindsight or Headway app lets me kind of listen to some books as I'm going to practice. Now, the voices can really suck sometimes because sometimes they just don't know how to use punctuation. It just kind of talks like this, and it's kind of hard to understand. But I do get the gist of what they're trying to say. So, there is a book I just listened to over the last couple of days, or a Cliff Notes book, and I believe it's called Coaching something. Let's see. The Coaching Habit. Now, for these difficult conversations, it is important that you understand how to go about putting everybody back on the same path, right? Now, this book outlines 5 or 6 questions. And the way they outline these questions are very cool because they say about how they are better questions than how other questions. Because the vast majority of the time when people are talking about difficult subjects, you can get into the weeds about any kind of issue, circumnavigating the true issue, and it's very tough to like really hit it head on and then have everybody feel good enough to move on. Now, with that said, here are the questions. The first question is, what's on your mind? It's a great icebreaker, right? It's not accusatory. Like a lot of times, especially from the player's perspective, they feel like they'd be intruding to go talk to coach and to go be, and to go voice their grievances, right? I recognize that. That's a tough situation. They feel like their own internal turmoil is not something that needs to be spread to the coach, or it's just an anxious situation. They want to be avoidant of it. But if a coach goes up to a player and says, "Hey man, what's on your mind?" It opens the door for them to air their grievances, right? That's important. Like, it's so important that players feel that they have that ability. If they don't feel that they have that ability, the communal nature of the coach, or the community isn't as high as it should be, and it should be high. Well, if you're open to it, right? A lot of times the perspective of, like, especially perspective I feel some players have of me is that because I'm kind of drill sergeant-y on the field, that I wouldn't be open to having those personal conversations, but those are actually the conversations I love to have most. So if the coach can open the door for the player to air their grievances, that's a great thing, and what is on your mind is a great question. The next question, and this is where sometimes people will circumnavigate that idea, the real true nature of it, and they'll kind of express the little touch points around the real issue, and you say, and what else? Great question. 3 words, great question. What else is bothering you, right? And then for the most part, people will continue to discuss the little things that have, upset them over time. And it's awesome because one of the I'd say main things that I have struggled with in the past is the understanding that people can be pissed at me, and it's, good, be upset. It's not affecting me, but their upsetness doesn't have to make me upset, right? Their grievance on the situation doesn't have to make me upset. And so there are times that it does, and I got to reel myself back in, but, other times there's not. But so in order to get to the deepest part of that, and what else is a good question. So next, when you think about the playing time decision, that's something that will come up. I'm disappointed that I'm not playing. That's awesome. I love that you're disappointed that you're not playing because it means you care. It means you think it's an important thing. Now, what I need from you is I need you to make sure you know everything and that you're waiting and you're ready to execute, right? And on the sideline, you're the kid that's going to hop out of line, jog up and back, jog back, as a goal is scored, and you're still warm. You're not just standing there cold on the sideline. You're ready to go all the time, and that you're hyping up your teammates and you're doing all of that. Just because okay. So in that decision, there's a way you can act and there's a way that you can be. Now, the next question is, what is the real challenge here for you? And that's a great question because it pinpoints exactly what the grievance is, what's happening that's really, upsetting you. And if it's in a, if it's in a component of where you're trying to have someone either get on the same page or help bring someone up, it could be something that they're struggling with in terms of what they're wanting to do. Like if it's, why am I not thinking of that word? If it's a performance thing where you're trying to get someone to perform well and there's some specific thing that that they need help with, that's a good way to hit it directly. Next, I'm not sure which one of these is first in the book, but we'll get to either one. Next is, how can I help, right? How can I help is an easy way to make sure that whoever you're talking to, you're getting direct action of how you can impact that situation. And as you impact that situation, it puts them in a position where they are going to have to give you something specific they can do. Now, if that's something on the level of it's just that when you're coaching in front of everybody, just, coach me a little bit more individually on those levels. Perfect. Love it. If that's how I need to discuss and how I need to be with a certain player, I'm all for it, right? All for it. Next question is, if you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to, right? So if there's a heavy situation like playing time, right? If you're saying that yes to this, everyone's going to get to play, are you saying no to the, ability to learn from the situation of sitting on the bench or whatever else it may be? I'm not sure that's a great example of what that could be, but in terms of making decisions about life and about where you're going to go, if you're saying yes to this, what are you saying no to? And a lot of times people don't understand that not making a decision is a decision, right? Holding off on your ability to start your dream job or your dream thing is a decision. And you can always push it off to tomorrow, but there is never a tomorrow. There's only this moment, and you can choose in this moment to be the person who you need to be right now. All of the emotional turmoil is going to happen. You're going to have emotions. It's one of the hugest things about meditation is that when you meditate, you realize that everything, this too shall pass, right? If you're flustered, You sit down, you get still. Even if you're super, super pissed, it's going to feel awkward, but you just let it go, right? You let time pass. You let all the chemicals in your brain flow through you. You get all anxious, you get all crazy, but then it passes and you accept the idea and you breathe and you just let it go. One of my biggest things on, I guess, visualizations as I was meditating when I was in like a very difficult situation and a lot of stress was happening, was the visualization of being the I think it's the Atlas guy with the big world on his shoulders. Like, everybody's got tons of problems. It's one of the things I say to kids that have acne is like, recognize no one gives a shit. They're all worried about their own pimple. They're all worried about their own zits. Like, they care about all their crap. They're not even noticing yours. And like, I recognize that's really hard for young kids. I had trouble with it too, but like, most people are just in their own worlds worrying about all their own shit. No one really cares. And no one's coming to. No one's going to come save you in those situations either. But so in terms of the meditation idea, it was visualizing all of the things that I had to do and all of the problems and just literally just like acting like it was right here and then just lifting it off my shoulders and just setting it down. Just put it down. You can pick it back up again. You're going to have to, right? Those problems aren't going away. But right now, just set it down just for a minute. Feel what it feels like to not have the overbearing weight of everyone's expectations on you in this moment. And that helped me a ton. And so that ability to like kind of be, and just, not even to be, but just to kind of recognize that your emotions are going to flow through you, but they shouldn't. You have to gain enough control over them to recognize that once those emotions pass, then you got to go do it, or even right through it. So there's a so I've been doing these cold baths, right? So I'll take a shower, I'll run the cold water in my bath, and so it's just a like cold plunge for like 3 minutes, right? But so the reason I like it is because it puts a scenario of something I don't want to do every day that I have to get over. And one of the things I term it, and one of the things that I relate it to is when my brothers and I went on a rafting trip from Moab to Powell. It was like a 5-day trip, one of the best experiences of my life, amazing. On the last day when we were about to hit the docks at Lake Powell, there was a cliff on the river. And so it was a place everyone likes to jump off, right? But so if you think about cliff jumping, especially if you're not good at it and you don't know, there's this moment when you're standing on the cliff, and I was kind of sitting because it was kind of slanted, but there's this moment where you're nervous, you're ready to go, you know you want to go, and then you just push off and then you just endure, right? It's like being on a roller coaster. Once you're strapped in and going up the hill, you have to endure the rest of it, but there's that nervousness of it as you go. Now, a lot of times, the difficult situations that we have to attack in our lives, we have all that built up angst, that built up frustration. All we need to do is get there. All we have to do is get there, right? And by having that moment a lot where you don't want to go do something, but then just kind of forcing yourself through that get there moment will help in terms of allowing yourself to move through those difficult situations, or at least have for me. And I still suck at them too, right? There's certain things that I'm like, I'm still like avoidant of, you know what I mean? And so those are just some things that kind of like help me in terms of that idea. Like, if you're, regardless of what your decision is, if you're saying no to something or yes to something else, there's something you're going to do. But the key is just to like, the one that's pulling you most, probably go do that thing. As long as the things that's pulling you most isn't like, robbing a bank or anything like that. So hope all that made sense. Those are just some things that kind of have like helped me in those moments. But now, next question is, what was most useful for you? So there's a lot of times, a lot of different questions that kind of beat around the bush in this area. So by saying what is most useful for you in terms of what you just discussed, right? It makes it very accurate. We're not saying, hey, do you understand? Because then it's just a yes, right? By saying what is most useful for you, perhaps it's the acknowledgement that the coach is doing his best to make sure that we put the best players on the field, but then in other games, everybody gets playing time, right? When the situation hits itself, or, whatever the idea of that is. By making sure it's accurate in those moments, that's probably the most important part. Because it doesn't beat around the bush of like, are we clear? Yes. There's a lot of times that people don't even really listen. But by saying what was most useful for you, you make sure that they articulate it. There's another one I think that I didn't write down that was like, it makes them express the thing back to you, or the how can I help one makes them express exactly how they feel you should help in those ways, because a lot of times they don't even really discuss what the problem is and what the person can do to help. It's more of just they know there's an anxiety there and they don't know how to articulate and address it, but that's part of coaching, right? Your ability, and not just lacrosse coaching, but your ability to get people to articulate to themselves the issues that surround them helps everybody to move forward in a way where they can all do things well together. But so, yeah, those were the things I wanted to talk about. That's the whole grind my gears segment. I hope you guys like the thumbnail. I thought that was a really, really cool thing. Took me a little bit. And thanks for everybody who tuned in and watched. Looks like there's a lot. 115 people came in and left, which is awesome. We got 8 people on right now. Very cool. I hope that you, hold on, we got one. Okay, so we have a great comment. I don't know how long ago this was. Hopefully this person's still there. Slia is what it looks like. But so, Slia says, I have a teammate who tells me that he deserves to be the starter, but during practice he's always goofing off and doesn't take it seriously. How do I tell him to focus more without sounding like a dick? So, first off, I'd say just be straight with him. Look, man, every time coach looks at you, you're goofing around, right? You're doing other stupid stuff. You're not focusing. You're not showing that you're taking it seriously enough to be put on the field, and coach looks at you and he knows that. Like, you kind of got to put him in the situation of, look, man, you're doing this to yourself. And there's a lot of times that this happens. Like, working with people who are who are agreeable, who want to please people, it's very difficult for them to say and to infringe on other people's situations. And so a lot of times I'll have interactions with people where we will have to, let them know, like, look, you're literally lying to this person. You're lying to the person who you're not telling what your grievance is, right? And by lying to them and omitting information, you are creating a scenario where all we're going to have is just a terrible time as we move forward. Now, for this kid, what's tough with this is, so you're a peer, right? But honestly, I'd be like, dude, I don't want to hear it, man. You're creating this whole thing yourself. Now, honestly, I think the without sounding like a dick is where you're going wrong. I think you should sound like a dick. Be like, yo, man, I want you to play too, but you got to be better in these situations. You got to show coach that you know what you're doing, right? Like right now you're goofing off, and that's what, you just need to be better in that situation. So I would say confront it head on, make sure he knows what he's doing, and like, just tell him, like, look, man, you're always goofing off. You got to take it more seriously if you want to be that person. Yeah. So another one that just popped in. Okay, this is a great question, and this is one that is struggled upon a lot. So the question is, can you talk about the different roles of coaches? I have less experience, but see myself as an encourager, whilst the head coach is very experienced and is more tough. So, story time. When I left coaching with Mountain Vista and 3D with Coach Monroe, one of the things that Coach Monroe let me know, he was like, look, man, love you as a coach. I love your enthusiasm. I love where you're at. But you got to recognize, if you're going to be a head coach, like, you're a little too, not willy-nilly, but you're the encourager. You're the bro, right? Because I was really young at that time too. And so as we were having that conversation, he's like, you got to kind of be the drill sergeant in those ways, because the head coach is I look at it like Miracle. What's his name? What's the coach's name? No, you cannot take my man card right now. I'll think of it. Either way, the coach of the 1980 USA hockey team, right? He pissed all the coaches off. It was all the players versus him, right? You know, if you want, what's the quote? He's like, if you want a friend, go to Doc or whatever the assistant coach's name was. I'll be your coach. I won't be your friend. That's how it is for the head coach, right? For the vast majority of things. Now, in terms of the coaching relationship, I like that a lot. I like that the head coach will kind of direct and oversee. I also love Danowski's way he goes about it. So Danowski was in like an interview and they asked him like, "Hey man, what were you saying in the huddle? Like you guys had a timeout with 15 seconds left. What was the go-to?" And he's like, "So during timeouts, my job is to let the assistant coaches know how much time is left." Right? And so you're talking about the best head coach in the world, like one of the best coaches ever. And he's like, "Okay, my job in that spot is just to tell them what the coach is." So you can delegate a bunch. But so to more accurately assess your question, in those moments, I think that's exactly what you should be. Now, don't undercut the head coach by being the friend of all of the players in times when you also need to be hard. Like, don't sugarcoat stuff that the coach says in order to make the kids feel better, right? So I think of, Remember the Titans here, really, is what I remember, is when Denzel Washington approaches, I think it's Bill Paxton, and he's like, "Look, man, every time I come down hard on the black kids, you come and you like console them, right? But you don't do that to all the white kids. And what you're doing to the black kids is you're consoling them and you're acting like, you're saving them from big bad Boone is the thing he uses in it." And he's totally right. Like, you can't lessen the blow by kind of being nice with kids in those situations, because then you're kind of undercutting the coach and you're crippling the kid, because the kid needs to learn how to experience those things too. But so I think that your recognition of where you sit in the coaching flow is so important, because that's understanding what you do well and where you fit in is hugely important. And in terms of being a coach, that's the other thing that I have to do better, in terms of letting players know kind of how I see them and where they fit into our systems and how all of that stuff happens, because as you get into that, it creates more trust on knowing kind of what to do. I want to make sure that I hit your question well and probably just do it again, because that's what I do. So, in terms of practices and game time, we'll go through both. The way I visualize coaching, different coaching and roles in practice is this. During any drill, you have to have a drill person that's running the drill. That's someone who is blowing the whistles, starting and stopping, right? Letting players know, letting the entire group know. Now, if you're lucky enough to have more coaches than just that, here are how you can utilize them. The first is an offensive and a defensive coach who can watch those groups and individual players and give players feedback individually as the drill continues to run, because the head coach or the drill runner, the general, will not stop the drill. But so you get players doing individual coaching while the drill continues to run, because you don't want to stop it all the time. The next thing is in practice is someone who's going to throw in the balls, and you have, that's basically the varieties. You got to make sure you've got someone who's running the drill. If you don't have someone who is running the drill, or someone has to run the drill. If it's only one person, they got to run the drill and they got to talk to individuals as they're running the drill so they don't stop the drill. Next is during games, you got to have a coach who is that's who everyone brings it up on every time. It's always the head coach, at least for me. Now for Coach Danowski, it was, you go offense, you go defense. I'm going to fill them in with kind of these little issues so that you can have as good a time. I love that system. It's such a cool system. But in game times, I'll say that your ability, so first off, is one voice from the sideline. I don't care whose it is. It's one voice. And tell your parents to shut up too, right? Parents are allowed to encourage. You're not allowed to instruct. That's my rule. And from the sideline, I'll elaborate on that a little bit further because I think it's important. The reason why parents are not allowed to yell instructions from the sideline is because it puts Timmy in a difficult scenario. Coach is saying step away, move the ball. Mom is saying shoot. And then when Timmy gets in the car, Dad says, I wish you'd shoot more. Like, coach, like that's not what we're doing. Dad and Mom, you didn't put in the extra time to go coach these kids. You have no say. You have zero say. Your job is to facilitate the kid getting to and from practice, and the coach's job is to do that. But so in terms of on the sideline, one coach is talking at a time, in terms of directing the game or talking to players, not in a personal situation. And then you got to have someone who's going to run the bench, who's going to run the box. So in terms of running the box, that's someone who's going to literally watch the players come on and off the field and make sure someone else is ready for the next one. So you think about the idea of having like two midfield lines. If a midfield line is coming off, you need to know who's going to be ready to go for that player. And then once those players exchange, you got to find the next guy and then the next guy. And the LSM comes off. Okay, which LSM is ready? Okay, Sam, our LSM, had to go get water. Where's the third LSM? Where's the next person? And you got to make sure everyone's ready to go so that you don't have errors subbing. I hope I answered your question well enough. I think I did. And in the meantime, we got another question. So if you have any questions, throw them in here. I've got 10 more minutes left till my kids usually wake up. It's what we like. Some peaceful time to get some work done. So how can I encourage my team to practice at home? I always tell my teammates to do wall ball at home, and it seems like they are never motivated. Do you have any tips? Yes, make practice as fun as possible. 100%. So I'm with you 100%. And the way that I will express it is you have to make practicing important for them. So the way I think about it is practice needs to be the time where the team is taught, not the time where individuals are taught. And so in doing stick skill drills, I get it, right? You want your team to have great stick skills, but you're wasting valuable playing time if you're just doing stick skills at practice, right? I get the idea of having a warm-up, but after that, they got to play. They've got to experience the game as much as possible. And so what you'll find is as you're picking one player versus another for specific drills, tell them flat out, like, you need to work on your stick skills if you're going to be the person who's going to play. It's another way that this whole work while you wait idea makes sense, because if they're not allowed to play because their stick skills aren't on par, they're going to want to work on their stick skills, right? And then for me, it's hard for me because I have what I feel is such a unique situation, but I don't think it is a unique situation. Let me do another episode on how to contradict yourself in a single sentence. When I grew up, I found the game through my older brothers and my dad, and I was 8 years old on my front lawn throwing with them, and my brothers found it in high school. And they would say things like, man, look, he's going lefty already and he's only 8, right? And that, I loved that. That was just encouraging. It was great. It was awesome. So at home, if the parents can do that and can advocate for them to go do it, and I don't mean advocate in terms of, hey, Timmy, you got to go hit the wall. Remember, coach said you got to go hit the wall. No, screw that. Go play with them. Go get a stick. Go play with them. Best story ever. And so I'm totally going off on a tangent, but I will circle back. I promise. My favorite lacrosse parent ever was a parent who would sit in his truck during practice before his kid was able to drive. Now, at the end of POWLAX practice, basically every day we play 3x. It's so much fun. The kids have a blast and they get a ton of experience just playing and reading and reacting to each other. It's a blast. Well, we had 11 guys. And 11 guys in 3x, you basically play 3v3 on each case. Is basically we got 5 kids sitting and a game happening. So he's sitting in his car, so I asked him if he wanted to come play. And he got out of his car and he played with us. And it was so much fun. So much fun. And this dad, who usually kind of wouldn't be involved in the space, came out and had fun. That's the commitment that we need from parents, is to enjoy something with their kids because their kids enjoy it. Now, in my which video did I put that in? I'm not sure. But in one of my videos, I talk about how even if it's like a baseball family, right? And the dad and the mom have their baseball, softball, and they have their mitts. Throw a baseball with them, right? It doesn't have to be lacrosse, but as long as you're out interacting and kind of helping them with their skills. Now, the one thing I will say that was hard for me when I was throwing with the player playing baseball is you don't have as much, ability to get balls that are wide of you. So when you're playing lacrosse, you kind of throw it to the outside of the person. When you're playing baseball, you throw it to their chest. And so that was a big thing I kind of had to deal with. But so 2 ways to make working on your own more effective. Make sure stick skills are a valuable part of practice, where players who don't have stick skills, maybe it's don't play as much as the others, but don't just continually bark at them like, hey, you got to work on your stick skills. Say things more like, I don't know, advocate for the parents to play with the kids and to encourage them. Now, that could be a turnoff depending on if they're like 13, 14 and they're in that age where they like don't even want to deal with it. But at that point, they should have a love for the game. And the reason I was going back to my childhood growing up and saying that it's not like many other people is because I didn't play my first organized lacrosse till 8th grade, but I had played the sport since I was 6, right? Because I was just in the backyard playing by myself because I loved my interactions with the stick, right? Like I would do tricks and I would switch hands and before there was a DVR, I would practice tricks in the basement and I would go upstairs and I would finally hit the trick and then I would ruin my parents' shows by being like, oh my gosh, check this out, watch, I can do this new trick. And I would do a stall on this side, stall between my legs, stall around the back, stall between the legs, stall over here. That was when I ruined I think it was a Law and Order episode one time and my stepmom was pissed, but whatever. It was cool. But I just enjoyed the sport so much that I never needed someone to tell me to go play. Right. And so that's the thing is a lot of players are just experiencing the sport. They're just trying to get into it. And so they want someone to go play with. And a lot of times breaking that ice is hard because they want to just go play Roblox or Fortnite or whatever. And they want to keep it on that level. So making sure it's a valuable part of practices and that they know that they're not going to get to play if they don't, improve their stick skills, that they work while they wait, while they're at home, so that the game becomes... So here's another thing. And so this will be the last part unless I have another question. But so, like I mentioned, practice is for the team, not the player. And if you put players in that game-like environment a ton in practice, they're going to realize where their shortcomings are, right? Because kids aren't going to want them on their team. They're going to want, Jimmy, who practices every day. They're going to want him on the team. And if they are throwing bad passes or not catching passes multiple times in games, in practice, they will then find the value of practicing outside because they recognize they don't want to be that guy in practice. And so it seems counterintuitive because as a coach, you want to have them play well, and your objective, your idea is, I want to make sure that my players have the best stick skills, right? And so we're going to have them run stick skill drills all day. Now, I think that's a valid idea. I don't see the benefit to do it past 20 to 30 minutes because then you get into a stagnant idea of they're just throwing and catching versus playing the game. What I do find value in is the idea of putting as many players as possible into their own separate games of like 3 players each or like 3-on-3, where at all times the player is engaged in the game and they are getting as many touches as possible within a live play setting. And especially at the youth level, that makes a lot of sense because odds are you've got probably 18 players. And so if you want to run, 4v4s, there's 9 of your players already, right? So you got the goalie and then the other 8. And then you can just throw in the next 8. And then, you're playing relatively quickly, but they're playing a lot. And they're getting the experience of playing the game enough to where working at home becomes something that they desire to do. Right? Because the game sells itself. I think we often kind of forget that. The game is going to sell itself by players getting to play. And as players get to play, they're then more inclined to work harder to develop their skills because they don't want to be that guy who always drops the ball. That's at least kind of how I think of it. Hope that helped. I think we're almost at the hour, so I think we'll wrap it up. Thanks, everybody, for watching. I think I might do more lives at 4 a.m. now because I thought this was going to be a 15-minute video. It turned out to be, what are we at now? To be an hour and 15 minutes. It's a little longer than I thought, but I appreciate you guys coming in and watching. We had 167 playbacks. Average playback was like 2 minutes, 26 seconds, which totally works. But right now we're at 14 people. That's awesome. Let me know if you guys like this kind of content, what kind of content you want to see, because I will definitely put it out in this time. With my schedule, you know, it's very busy, so if I can get stuff out in lives, it's great. If there are any specific topics you want to see, let me know. Since there's 50 people on, make sure to check out POWLAX.com. If you've got any other, you know, lacrosse coaching stuff that you want to see, hit me up on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, all of the above. Have a great Monday. Good luck in the 2022 season. And yeah. Oh, we got a thanks package. Appreciate all the time you do. Countless coaches. Don't even know. Thank you. See, and it's funny because I read that as like Steve because I have terrible eyesight, but it's STXWRX. So it's like lacrosse and cars, I think. I'm not sure. But you're very welcome. I hope that you guys all enjoy it. And yeah, let me know if I can ever help in any way. Actually, hold on. That's not the right question. How can I help? That's the one I want that I got to know. And what exactly, what was most useful for you? So if you want to answer that down in the comment section, please do. Have a good one, and I will see you guys soon.